Hey guys, it's Holly. So I have an old school LEGO Harry Potter set review for you today, as I may or may not have gone onto eBay and bought a retired set that I probably shouldn't have. Though in an attempt to justify it to myself, I'm pretty confident that this could be a set that happens this year, so I wanted to do a review on it and then I can do a comparison on it, and overall I've just really wanted this set for a long time, and that is the 2004 Dumstrang Ship. Now this set had a pretty limited run to my knowledge. It wasn't too common, and there were two different variations that released, one of which just had 2 minifigures, and the other one was, I believe, a Target exclusive and came with 6. Now this one is just the stock standard one, and overall I think this set holds up incredibly well considering its age, but let's go and have a closer look at it. So here is the Dumstrang Ship all completed, and this thing is giant. It looks absolutely incredible. But before we take a look at it properly, let's go and have a look at the minifigures. Now, like I said, there are 2 different versions of the set, but no matter what, you do get the 2 Dumstrang minifigures complete with their uniforms. The first one is Victor Crumb himself, and I love his uniform torso so much. I think it works really well, although it's really frustrating to sort of see that flesh tone printed on the grey brick. I don't think that works at all. It almost looks tan instead of flesh, but at the same time I understand that this was 2005. We really hadn't been printing just flesh tones in general for that long at this point, so I will give it a pass. I also don't expect any leg printing or back printing. There's also no double-sided face, and he has this really sort of nice funky hat. I don't think it quite works very well for the Dumstrang hats, but it's good enough I feel like for this set, and I definitely think as well this face print is a big step up from the more recent one. I just don't think that one really captured Victor Crumb at all. However, I do have to say his lips sort of do look a tiny bit funky. Then the second minifigure, with no matter what version you get, is Igor Karkaroff, and this is the only time he's ever appeared. Victor Crumb also is exclusive to this set. However, the character of Victor Crumb did appear in the Rescue the Merpeople set, which again is also incredibly rare to find. Igor Karkaroff, however, is the exact same. The only thing that's different about him is his face print, which definitely looks quite old. Those eyebrows look pretty funny, honestly, and I love that huge beard piece. It's very odd. Doesn't quite suit in with any of the minifigures we've got these days, unlike I feel like Victor Crumb could, but it's really good that we did get this figure in fact, and I feel like if we got him these days, he definitely wouldn't be wearing this outfit. He'd be wearing his sort of white robes and would look incredibly different. Now, in the Target exclusive version of the set, you would get an additional 4 minifigures, and actually I've been able to make 3 of them. Now, this Dumbledore also came in the Hungarian Horntail Escape, as well as the 2007 Hogwarts Castle, so there's nothing too exclusive about him, but it's definitely a lot easier sort of buying that Target exclusive set than it would have been to buy all of them, but it's a pretty neat inclusion, although I definitely don't think it's worth paying sort of the extra to get that set unless you were only really after the Dumstrang Ship. Also in that pack you get Rong, who also featured in the Black Lake set and the 2007 Hogwarts Castle. He's definitely not quite as rare, and really I've never really liked that face print of his. It looks quite funky, especially considering you can see his chin from the bottom of his hair. To go along with Ron, also from that same set, you also get Hermione, which has that older style of hairpiece, but that newer style of face, which again looks really creepy. I don't think it's quite as bad as her 2004 version, but still not my favorite. And both Ron and Hermione do also come with their sleeping heads, because essentially they just took the minifigure versions from those sets and just threw it into this bonus one. And then lastly is the Final Task Graveyard Jewel version of Harry. I don't currently have him in my collection, but he was the last exclusive figure. His face is nothing special though. It did appear in quite a lot of other sets. The real thing that you're really paying for with this figure is the torso. So here is the completed Dumstrang Ship, and it is a lot taller than I expected. It's also incredibly light, and I feel like a lot of that is, because it's a boat, if people want to try and make it float, which I don't recommend doing because you might ruin the sails, but if you did want to try it, they need to try and make it float somehow, and those pieces at the bottom are incredibly light, and since the set doesn't have too many pieces as well, it doesn't really add too much weight to it. It's also incredibly long because of the mast at the front, so it's sort of an odd odd size to display, but it's nothing too major or too complicated that I feel like you wouldn't be able to find a place for it. Although because of its height, it's incredibly hard for me to sort of show you this set in the regular table, so I thought I would do it on this mini black one. Now overall, there's quite a lot of detail considering how little pieces there are, and overall I absolutely love the color scheme, and the shape is almost identical to the Goblet of Fire movie, which I really appreciate. I also love how there is no stickers in this set, which is incredibly helpful, especially considering how old the set is. It means nothing's going to be peeling off, so as long as you can find a version where these shield pieces are in good quality, you should be perfectly fine. There's a lot of space on this ship for minifigures, despite only getting 2 of the actual sort of uniforms, even though only one of them's a student. It's still nice to sort of have all of that extra room, and I feel like this set is going to complement the Beauxbaton's carriage that came out a couple of years ago very, very nicely, and I should probably go and fish that out of my collection so I can put them side by side at some point. So the ship itself is incredibly tall and doesn't really have proper sails. I mean, you've got these little fabric flags, which these ones in particular are in really good condition. The overall body of the ship as well is pretty sturdy, but definitely has quite a few gaps and honestly not that many pieces, but it feels fine just because of the pure height of this ship. You've got 2 crow's nests at the top as well, allowing for a lot of space for minifigures. There's a lot of space as well on the deck for minifigures, which is quite nice, even though you do only get the 2, so it feels somewhat wasted. You get an anchor at the front as well, and just the cabin at the back is really well decorated with a bunch of chrome pieces. The color scheme as well is very slick, and I love the printed shields on the front. It's really well decorated and overall feels very substantial for the amount that you actually get. Turning the ship around and you can sort of see a tiny bit better of how the ship is laid out. You can see that there is still quite a bit of space as well at the back of the ship in order to stand minifigures along the sides. You even get this little plank for minifigures to sort of sit and walk on, which I thought was pretty cool. Now the back of the ship is divided up into 3 sections. First is this little top bit, then you've got this sort of balcony here, all leading you into what I want to call the captain's quarters, where there is again quite a bit of space, including a table, but we'll have a closer look at that in a second. At the front of the ship, there's also like this little holding area where you can lift up this platform and it sort of unlocks this little empty space, which if you did buy that Target exclusive version, you can put all of the other minifigures in and just sort of capture them and leave them trapped in there as if it's some sort of dungeon if you really wanted to. There's quite a bit of space, which is quite nice. However, there isn't really anything besides those additional figures, if you did get that one, that you can really store in there. And lastly, like I mentioned, there is the plank, which I thought was quite funny and can sort of act as like a little slingshot because it is placed on a little hinge. So you can have all these minifigures flying around and you can send them off into the Great Lake to be attacked by the mermaids if you really want to. I mean, the world's your oyster, just like a lot of Lego sets in general. So in the bottom level of the ship, there's really all not that much. There's some space on the side, which I guess you can sort of hang up the wands from this set, which are just those typical sort of bar pieces. Really nothing too special. I mean, it's really a sign of the times, I feel like, with this set. There's also 2 archways in order to sort of access this sort of captain's quarters area. There's some little plates here in order to use as a seat for Victor Crumb and Igor Kargarov if you really wanted to as well. So you can simply just fold their legs up and place them on there if you want to. And this table also moves backwards. You can lift it up to sort of expose this like compass, sort of navigation tool. I'm not entirely sure what those are called. And then you can place that entire thing back down. You've also got one of those sort of really vintage letters. And overall, it's pretty spacious, but there's really not a lot going on. Then you can put on the main deck, and usually I have to sort of line it up with those blue plates because every time I pull it off, they sort of pop off since they're not jumper plates. And really, again, there's really not that much here. There is a tiny bit of deck space at the front and back. You've got some clips on the side here, the steering wheel, of course, and there's a map right at the top in order for all their students to actually find their way to Hogwarts, considering I don't think it's a particularly easy location to get to. The only thing with this, though, is unless I've built this wrong, you really can't place someone up here to steer unless their hands are right by their head. It just sort of doesn't work, and I'm not too sure why that is. I should probably recheck the instructions. Otherwise, you just sort of look a bit awkward like so. Then lastly, you have this tiny building, which I imagine has an official name, but I have no clue what it is. This building just sits on the top onto a bunch of jumper plates. Again, it has some really nice doors which can open up. And honestly, this is around the same size, I'd say, as that tent from the updated 2019 Hungarian Horntail, but honestly has a lot more interior, and also there's more space to stand on the deck at the very, very top. But before we take a look inside, I really wanted to draw your attention to these chrome dish pieces. They look spectacular, and considering how old this set is, the chrome on these pieces in particular is in really good condition, and I think they just look excellent. I think it really adds a nice accent to this set and is really a nice standout piece that also ties in with the studs at the very bottom of the set underneath those printed shields. So here is that last compartment, and for all intents and purposes for this review, I'm going to call it the captain's quarters, even though I don't think that that's correct. We're just going to take a wild guess. So once you've opened up those doors, you can sort of have a look inside and see that it's a tiny bit cramped, but when you actually open this thing up, there's quite a bit in here. Firstly, you have this little table, complete with a tiny stovetop, which looks like an incredibly huge fire hazard if you ask me. There's also a bat back there, and even some quills. You've also got this scroll piece, which the only other time I've seen that personally in my own collection is in the 2007 Hogwarts. There also seems to be like a tiny replica of like a fire, which to me sort of screams Goblet of Fire, considering it's got like the blue flames in particular. However, I personally don't believe that the Dumstrang brought the Goblet of Fire with them, so let's just ignore that. And then on the other side, there's this tiny little bookcase, which again has some clips on the side, despite nothing really supposed to be clipped to them. You also get this blue goblet and this little red old style book, which just sits in this tiny bookshelf. Overall, I think it's pretty spacious considering how like big this is actually supposed to be. And honestly, what I love most about this section is just the amount of detail. I love all of the slope pieces, the windows. I love how the windows as well are dark red to sort of tie in with the deck up here. The whole color scheme is really lovely. I also love the texture using these modified bricks as well as these round bricks. And I feel like for a set, especially in 2005, this was really, really well done and really utilized the pieces that were available at the time incredibly well. Like I said as well, I absolutely love those dish pieces. And at the very top, of course, there is a third and final mast. This one, however, does not have a sort of bird's nest, crow's nest thing at the very top. You've just got sort of one of those jousting spears, which has the fabric cloth attached to it. So overall, I really like the Dumstrang ship. I think it holds up incredibly well. A lot of LEGO fans in general really enjoy ships. This is personally my first ever proper ship that I've built. I mean, besides Steamboat Willie, but I wouldn't really count that, and I am incredibly impressed. The design of it fits in really nicely with modern LEGO Harry Potter sets, yet it also still does feel like a good old-timey set from LEGO Harry Potter, which I personally really enjoy because I don't have too many of those original waves in my collection at the moment. These days it is a really steep price point, but if you can find a good deal on one, or like me, this is a set that you've had your eye on for several years, I highly recommend looking into it. I do really hope though that LEGO does remake this set. As much as I love it, I would love to see a new and updated version, but also just for the people that can't stretch the budgets and aren't able to afford these older models, I feel like that would be a really good thing. I'm interested to see how much it would change because I feel like they've done such a solid job here today. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time, I'll see you later.